right. Yes, it is winter-ish. I think it's still technically fall, but we have snow. I am showing you just a little bit of our garden. This part here is brand new, virgin ground. We just started, we tilled it up in the summer and left it because we had a drought. The tiller is still in there because I never made it to the middle. We will get that tilled up in the spring. And then here are my raised beds. So you can see I have 8. And it's just surrounded by wood chips and some landscape timbers. So I have put the garden to bed for the winter, but I haven't put my ideas to bed yet. And that is what we're going to discuss today. So the next step to garden prep is to map out your garden. What I like to do is I take and I just use some graph paper and I make as close to accurate as possible the layout of my garden. Then I take and I actually make copies of that. So in case I decide maybe I thought I wanted tomatoes here and I decided I wanted them here, I just give myself some extra wiggle room. Then I start the planting portion. So where I might differ from other people, I don't plant anything in my garden that either an animal won't eat or my family won't eat. I don't have the time to sit and fiddle around with things. I have a limited amount of space, and there's really no point to me planting things such as eggplant. My family does not like eggplant. None of us do. Why would I plant them, take up space, only for them to rot? I mean, they're pretty, they're nice, yes, but it does nothing for the benefit of our homestead. So the only things that I am planting this year are green beans, and we do bush green beans. We tried pole green beans, and I don't get as good of a yield with those. So bush green beans, tomatoes, peppers. This could be anything from hot peppers to green peppers. Cabbage. The only reason I plant cabbage is for the chickens. Hi, sweetheart. Oh, okay, watch where you're going. Cucumbers. Whoop, whoop. Oh, are you okay? Are you okay? Okay. Cucumbers, potatoes, onions, and kale. And the kale is for the goats, and what I can do is dehydrate it and mix it up in their feed, and it gives them some good minerals. Sometimes I plant carrots. This year in particular, I'm not, because I got 50 pounds of carrots from Azure, and I have enough canned carrots to last me for 2 years, so I don't have to worry about that. So my raised beds are actually very accurate. I know that I can fit a total of 4 tomato plants on each side of the raised beds. My raised beds themselves are 4 feet by 8 feet by 2 feet high. This past year I had tomatoes here, 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 and that's it. Yeah, here, here, and here. I had potatoes, peppers, onions, peas, green beans, and then the carrots that never were. This was not here this past planting season. So this year we decided we wanted more tomatoes. We are a big red sauce family, pizza sauce, spaghetti sauce, that kind of thing. We also do a lot of canned tomatoes for chilies and soups. So I decided I'm making all 4 of these into tomatoes. This here is going to be the green beans. Again, these are bush green beans, and I know this is accurate because it's the same space area as we had planted last year in this section. So I can plant green beans here comfortably. Same with the peppers. I know I can comfortably plant 5 peppers. Oops. And then cucumbers. We're going to be putting a trellis here, just like a rounded top trellis. I'm not sure how many I'm going to be able to get in here. I'm just estimating at this point. So then when we go to this side, I might have been overzealous with a row of potatoes. I might only be able to get in 3. If that's all I can get, that's okay. But I'm hoping for 4. So here's the potatoes. Then this is cabbage. This here is onions. And this here is kale. So another thing that I had to do with my garden this year that I don't necessarily normally do, I had to do more companion planting. And basically what that is you're picking plants to put next to each other that benefit each other. For example, in this, the cabbage is in the middle. I know cabbage can be planted next to potatoes. There really is no huge benefit there to each other. I just know that they're okay to be planted next to each other. The onions, however, they give off a smell that deters cabbage worms. Also, for the kale, they give off that smell that deters the pests that go on cabbage. Off the top of my head, I can't remember what it is. Anyway, so I tried to plan everything out based on what would help each other, what would harm each other, what not. For the raised beds, I already know the only thing that we're adding to the raised beds that we didn't have last year is the cucumbers. But I know that my tomatoes can go by my green beans. My peppers were just fine last year. They were next to the tomatoes. So I'm not too worried about that. Now, we do not do succession planting. That is because we don't plant the vegetables that work well for succession planting in our area. We are zone 3B, northern Minnesota. So just to explain what succession planting is, that is where so let's take radishes. Radishes are a really fast growing plant, and you want radishes all year long. So you plant week 1, you'd plant your radishes. You wait a week, maybe even 2 weeks. Plant another row of radishes. Wait another week to 2 weeks, plant another row of radishes. By the time your 3rd week is planted, your 1st week radishes should be close to or ready to be picked, give or take. Once you pull those, you can, in that same spot, you can plant another row of radishes, and it kind of moves down the line. So you're always planting and harvesting when you're succession planting. Oh my goodness. Another one you can do it with, you can do it with kale. You can do it with carrots, although carrots can be a little more bitter when they're pulled before the first frost. So I don't recommend doing carrots in succession planting. You can do cabbage. You can do green onions or chives, kale, lettuce, radish, peas, sugar snap peas, and early peas, they're called. Peas like that little bit of cool when they grow. Off the top of my head, that's all I can think of for the succession planting. But again, basically, it's really simple. You start week 1, you plant, wait a couple weeks, plant another row, wait a couple weeks, plant another row. You go back to your first row, you harvest, and you plant. Then you go on to your second row. Should be ready. Harvest, replant. And you continually do that with whatever it is. And please know I'm being very broad about this. It might not be exactly 2 weeks. You could plant a week later, you could plant 3 weeks later. You have to determine how often you want to harvest. You also need to figure out what the germination rate of time is, how long before they're fully mature. So those things kind of factor in when you determine how often you're going to plant. The basic reason for succession planting is so that you're in that vegetable year round. You in a southern area might be able to succession plant many more things than we up north can. So that's why I say I really don't put a lot of weight into it. We don't eat radishes. Kale is for the goats. The cabbage is for the chickens. So I don't necessarily have a specific food that we would plant in that way. The only other thing that I would do if I needed them. So I know that in between my rows of tomatoes, excuse me, I could fit another plant, one that likes more shade. So let's say lettuce. I could put lettuce in between my rows of tomatoes here. I could put carrots in the middle. I'm not sure that there's anything else that I would put in the middle. So yes, just one second, baby. Oop, say excuse me. Thank you. So I know, yep, can you not grab that for Mom? Thanks, I'm trying to keep it still. Thank you.
Mama, I want milk.
Sure, I can get you some. Can you give me 1 second? Thank you.
Mama.
I know that if I needed more room, I could plant a few things in the middle here. But again, I don't need that room this year because we added this. I'm not doing carrots, so I think we will be okay. Now let's talk about minerals in your soil. If you have the money to do a soil test, go ahead and do it. It's not going to hurt you. It's going to actually benefit you a lot. If you're like me, I don't have the money for that. I go off of what happens to my plants. For example, this year my tomatoes had a lot of end rot. Basically, the bottom side of the tomato kind of starts to eat away. I am not against putting more commercial grade nutrients into my soil, but I would rather use things that I have around my house that don't cost me a whole lot of money. So here are some things that I have found that take the place of that more expensive type of stuff. So an example, the end rot, you need calcium. That's a sign of low calcium in your soil. A lot of people say go ahead and crush up some eggshells, powder them, and then put them on. I'm going to explain to you, it's not a bad idea to do this, and in the long term, it will help add calcium to your soil. But if it's something that you need for the next year, that is not the way to go. It takes too long for the eggshells to decompose. So what I did, buy yourself some powdered milk and sprinkle it over where you know, in this case, my tomatoes. I know exactly where I'm going to be planting my tomatoes. So I sprinkled a bunch of the powdered milk over the top of it. If you have extra milk, say you're one of those people who have a milk cow and you're in abundance of milk, add a little bit of water to it, water it down just a little, and put it in your soil. That is a great way to get instant calcium into your soil. So we've got the powdered milk, banana peels. Banana peels, you can bury them in your soil. They're going to give you calcium. What does it say? I got my little cheat sheet here so I remember. Calcium, magnesium, and sulfur. And sulfur actually helps a plant to become more pest resistant. In the way of tomatoes and peppers, they really like Epsom salt. Epsom salt is good for magnesium. Magnesium deficiencies in my area are very common. So you can do one of two things. I put my plants in first, And then I sprinkle, when they get a little bit bigger, I sprinkle a little bit of Epsom salt over them. Let me rephrase. You don't put it over the plant, you put it on the soil around the plant, excuse me. And then I just let the rain take care of the rest. Coffee grounds. Coffee grounds are really good for nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus. These are all things that nutrients that you should probably do in the fall to let them settle in, soak in, get into your soil. But if you can't, you can do them right before planting in most cases. So if you're just starting out, save some of these things over the winter. Put your banana peels in bags and throw them in the freezer. Buy yourself some powdered milk. Save all of your coffee grounds. Put them in the freezer after you've made your morning coffee, whatever. Put them in the freezer and save them until next year. It's greatly going to help your pocketbook. And also, like I said, it helps not to have to add the more commercial grade things to your soil. Now, if you were able to do the soil test and it came back that you're really deficient, you might want to look into a 1 year of actually doing the commercial grade stuff just to get your soil up to par. And then you can do some of these more little, I don't want to say homeopathic, that's not the word I'm looking for, but homestead type remedies for your garden year after year. So for my own personal garden, like I said, I knew I was deficient in calcium because of the end rot, so I did the powdered milk. I had done Epsom salt around my tomatoes and peppers last year in end of spring, beginning of summer. That also actually helps add to the sweetness of your tomatoes, which is really cool. I haven't had to do banana peels yet. And I did do some coffee grounds this year, but not a whole lot because I was using the Epsom salt already. So I do have a container that is going into the freezer with my coffee grounds, just in case. It's not going to hurt anything if I don't use it this year. I don't necessarily have banana peels going because, like I said, I wasn't really in need of that for my soil this year. But with the new section of garden that I'm planting, I might. So maybe I should actually start saving some banana peels. I don't know. Kind of sounds like a good idea to me. So your garden is, in essence, sometimes a science experiment. Some years you are going to have great yields and the next year you plant the exact same thing and you have low yield. It's sometimes the luck of the draw. You have to realize that. This year in Minnesota, we were in a drought. My particular area was in a severe drought. I had to continually water. Sometimes the raised beds I always have to water. When it comes to in-ground garden, I usually don't unless we haven't had rain for a good extended period of time. Plants do acclimate to what's going on. So if you are having a time where you're just not getting as much rain, your plants will start to acclimate and store more water. You have to trust God and you have to trust nature that they know what they're doing sometimes. It's our job to help where we can and to be good stewards of what we've been given. I hope that you might have found some tips or tricks to help you with your upcoming garden planning. And I wish you many healthy yields.